We can't do the plan. It's a
are we allowed to
decision.
do that?
It's a,
Good evening, folks. So, sorry for the late start. We do not have a quorum tonight, but we are going to go ahead. There's 6 of us here this evening. A quorum would be 7 for the Master Plan Update Steering Committee. So there'll be no deliberations tonight, but at least we're going to try and exchange some information, and then certainly part of that information exchange will be for folks at home and in the audience to glean, and then certainly ask any questions that we can answer in a non-deliberative way, but at least information passing. So with that, Mike, would you lead us pledge of allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With summer vacations and the like, and summer work for some people too, is the reason that we're a little short-handed this evening. So we will skip approving minutes. Public input. Roland, Bob, would you like to say anything? All right, what we are going to do is, we do have a couple presentations, and these will be informative, so they are going to be useful. And most likely, we weren't going to take action on them tonight anyway, other than to listen to some of the work that's been done. And we're going to start shortly with our RFP, RFQ subcommittee, and they'll give us an update. Then Mike Zeldin has looked at an organizational theme of sorts, or an organizing theme, and he's going to talk to us, give us some thoughts there. Rich Crowley's going to talk a little bit about the schedule and how that's been modified a little bit based on lessons learned as we've been going through this. We're going to continue talking about outreach, and then we'll adjourn. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to the RFQ committee. How do you guys want to?
he's the chairman, Mr.
Well, in that case, we have two subjects that matter here. We have a schedule, and we have an update on the RFQ development itself.
So go and go with the RFQ first, please.
RFQ development.
Yes.
Oh, Paul, could you take us? You have the floor.
Well, our subcommittee is with Rich, Mike, myself, and Myron. We've met twice. We went through, after deliberating a little bit, we decided on using a model, recent model from Tewksbury, from their town center operation, as just the boilerplate to pare it down. Myron's already done a good job of cutting that down with some input from Bonnie yet, or that's coming?
Not yet.
Okay, on the public bid process, you'll be getting Assistant Town Administrator, Finance Director Bonnie Holston's input as well. We had a brainstorming session the first session. We reacted to Myron's excellent efforts of incorporating our comments into the RFP draft that we're working on the second meeting, and I'd say we're pretty close. We worked on trying to include topics that have come up in discussions here in terms of wanting to have, making it clear that we're looking for a new plan, not an updated plan, striving for innovation, looking for the applicants to approve both their past performance and to give details about how they hope to conduct the process. And, we're not presenting you with a draft yet tonight, but I would think probably by the next meeting, we would be able to look at a draft. We're not too far away. It's probably smaller than some of the other ones we looked at. We decided a lot of that language was, other than the stuff that's required by, statute or 32B process, that we really want to make short, concise messages, but that we want the applicants to do their own homework at this point. So I don't know if Mike or Rich want to add anything, but as I say, the next time around, you should have a draft in front of you of what we're proposing with open ears to any suggested changes.
Yeah. And we've taken a look at other drafts, other RFQs,
Yeah.
and probably pulled the best we could out of those that apply to this town in this situation. And I think we're actually taking a innovative direction so that we can explore greater a larger area, like what's the word I'm looking for?
Beyond the core elements that are spoken to in statute, I know we've got language in there that,
Well,
well, I'm just reading it off the the draft we've got here. There are, what is it, 7 or 8 topic areas that
Correct,
are
yeah.
mandated, and we obviously are going to cover those, but, as we discussed when the folks were here from Groton, Boxborough, and Harvard, sometimes ideas come up that the townspeople want to address, the legitimate issues, and they don't neatly fit into those categories. Every town is different, every time is different, so we want to make sure that the plan reflects that and isn't too boilerplate. I don't know, is that fair?
Right, and then the one suggestion was to add governance.
Right.
So it's another
Yep.
topic.
With nothing particular in mind, other than make sure we don't ignore it, yeah. And then if the area under scope of services, what we talked about there, too, was making sure we were comprehensive and including all the activities that we, that we were expecting of them, so we don't put ourselves in a position of later on asking somebody to do some work that wasn't in there so that they, produce a change order.
That's where the rubber meets the road.
That's right.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the two tacks. We're working out the language under current goals and status, I guess it is. We've pretty much settled on the project background stuff, and the scope of services, that's where we're looking to get Bonnie's input primarily. Well, from there on, pretty much, yeah.
Right, from there on.
Yeah.
A lot of it will be standard. One of the points for your next subcommittee meeting is just to pick what the minimum standards are for the consultant.
Right. Okay. So we still get some work to do, but we'll get a draft to you soon.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into schedule.
We're not there yet.
We're not
We're
there.
not segregating yet.
It's on the agenda, Rich.
Oops.
We'll get there. Tewksbury, can we get the Tewksbury plan uploaded, please? Yeah, unless I'm missing it. I don't see it on our RFP examples on the website.
Here it is, no?
Usually that's fine. It's
Yeah.
just if we get it uploaded, since we're discussing it now,
Yeah.
then all committee members can have an opportunity to see
Yeah.
it and, kind of getting trained, your training
Right.
quarters to why you thought it was a good idea to use it.
And that's more to form than content.
It's
Yeah.
form.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's-
No, I have access to my files.
Well, we got it somewhere, because we got it.
Right, I have it in my files.
Okay.
Can it be posted, is it okay to post it on the website?
Sure.
That's what it
That's what he wants to do.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay.
To see we got all the other examples.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
All right. All right, so everybody's, any questions of our subcommittee folks?
And I think my only question would be is if there was a part of any particular RFP or RFQ that you like, just let us know.
Right.
Good point.
That's a question for the world.
Yeah.
How do we, certainly to the committee, it's easy enough, just one of your emails asking that. We still have all the committees, I want to think about even getting that out to the public, how we can best advertise that to get those inputs that, maybe that gem we're just missing. That somebody out there who's in the business of writing RFPs, RFQs themselves, and may just come and have you thought of, there you go. Nope, had not. So thoughts, maybe just drop Maren a note.
Yeah.
Think through this, that may be a good way to expand how we're getting the word out to folks.
I was going to suggest
But
to purchase a couple of sandwich boards, put one at the Common and one down by the trains, not the train station, the depot.
Okay.
And with a notice that that we're meeting on such and such a night, come and voice your opinion for the future of Littleton. Something catchy like that.
All right, we don't even have to buy them, do we? Because we already have them in inventory in the town.
Just because people look at those when they're going by the Common.
Yeah.
I do.
What will your catchphrase be?
Well, we'll have
We're
to,
back at this
I
again.
think
Refreshments provided based on the input we
Yeah.
There's the water.
We were told it worked.
seriously, we could do that.
Sure.
And I think when we get to the point of having the public meetings and the forums or the workshops or, you know, whatever, several means that we're gonna go through to do that. That'll certainly be one of the methods. That's the method, one of the methods Foxborough found to be most
Yeah,
effective.
that's like the lady was saying the other night, yeah, from Boxborough.
All right, okay.
And I think you're right. It's out there every night.
I don't
I know Roland and hosting the Pursuit of Excellence meetings always made sure we had snacks and drinks there in the room. Isn't that right? I said, when you were chairing the Pursuit of Excellence meetings, you always made sure there was food and drink in the room. Non-alcoholic, I should stipulate, you know.
So, my 2 cents.
You're not dropping a hint here, are you?
We need snacks.
All right. All right, anything else on the RFP then tonight, folks? All right.
Oh, we're meeting again next Monday, by the way. It's
Where, please?
here, 1 o'clock, right?
Okay.
Yeah, the subcommittee,
Subcommittee.
to talk about the RFQ. And the public is welcome. There'll be a
Yeah, there's a posted meeting.
Yep.
Mike, your organizing theme thoughts.
All right. Well, prompted by the remarks made by our esteemed chairman and input from my colleagues, who were very easy to work with, lots of back and forth, and listening to what's going on as far as I can do it around the neighborhoods, it seemed to me, and after reading a lot of the RFPs and also talking to the folks who are at the other end of them, namely the citizens in various towns, hardly consensus, it seemed to me that given Littleton's situation, it was important for us to have a focus, an organizing theme, something that reflected, something that touched on what is a central component of Littleton going forward for the next, shall we say, 10 to 15 years. And for reasons I'll be happy to elaborate on at a future time, it was my view that economics, and I mean the 2 branches of economics, made the most sense. And the 2 branches of economics are the ones we're most familiar with. It's called the efficiency side, which has to do with how much something costs. It has to do with materials. And the second one is a more recent development within economics in the last 15 years, and it's a softer, it's sociological. It has to do with something called fulfillment and quality of life. And the advantage of focusing on these is that it has both a very strong qualitative as well as a quantitative side that allows us to not only monitor and assess the performance of the consultant, but also monitor our results for those policies that are implemented and give some guideposts. Now, my real reason for proposing a organizing theme, especially this one, was to elicit from the public and from the committee, first of all, their views about an organizing principle. I just felt, I'll just repeat again, I felt that the other plans, the other master plans, including our own, whatever their merits may be, they quickly lost focus. They quickly, as it were, dissipated in terms of theme. They were not anticipatory, and I mean that. They did not fit the, shall we say, the shifting sands of time and circumstance. And so I was looking for a theme that provides a framework that allows the shifting sands of time and circumstance to be addressed not only through the planning but also in the future. Now, this is a theme. The first question is, do we want an organizing theme? Does it have value? What's its deficiencies? Number 2, should we have one or more than one, and why? And I'll just leave it at that. But I would just say that, I'll repeat again, my concern here is not whether or not it's economics or anything else. I am concerned about which one, but that's not the issue. The issue is, I'm looking for Littleton to come up with a plan that the public has a way of seeing in a very concrete term its impact on them in the near term and the far term. And I'm trying to also look for a way to involve them, even if it's somewhat, quote, provocative, unquote. So I'm going to stop right there and hopefully elicit remarks, comments, suggestions.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts from my side. So I like the idea of having a theme, whether it's one or more than one. But whenever I embark on a project at work, we have a theme. We need to go deliver X, and everything rolls up under that. So it's really clear we're all on the same page. So I like this conceptually. I also like economic development. I think that's great. What I don't know, this is what I was trying to think about, is does everything truly fit under that theme? Like, let's take an example, like cultural resources, for example. How might we fold that under an economic development theme?
Am I permitted to respond? No, because I don't want to, this is
Raise your
ridiculous
hand
silly.
first, then you may have.
No, seriously.
You started this, you're gonna have to answer it.
I don't mind doing this, it's just, this is silly. Okay, all right. It turns out that you hit the one that really reverberates for modern economics, and that is the impact of cultural, shall we say, cultural components of the community. And you can put in religion, art, music, the whole 9 yards. They have become more measurable in terms of frankly, their impact on the economy of a town. In fact, many towns revive themselves, if I can use that term, by building their rebuilding or reimagining their town around art and music, not
I
around
certainly
hard
love that
businesses.
idea
Okay,
in general.
now, how to do it is a different issue.
Yeah, but I see where you're headed.
But the impact here is, okay, I mean, directly, if you have enough critical mass of any of these, it turns out, it's just like any other field, the next thing you know is you have restaurants, support things, people around it. It's how you manage it, and frankly, there's a risk involved, which ones are going to be most successful. But it's very clear that cultural components can be assessed through the broad economic lens. So just don't think about this as inflow and outflow.
Yeah.
Hi, we have Indian Hill, and we also have the ski area in Kimball Farms. That's physical activity and cultural activity.
We don't have either the ski area or Kimball Farms.
Well, nearby. Yeah, right. But within.
Okay, I don't know let me give you scale issues here, and then I'll just,
We have the tube park.
right? All right?
Well,
I mean, you mentioned Indian Hill, and it's a very good example of a place to start. I have no idea if the community at large would be interested in it. I don't know how much Littleton reveres Indian Hill. If you look at the Indian Hill facility as it exists today, you have to raise the question, is it, quote, and I don't mean to be cruel, large enough? Are they going to become, as it were, I don't mean to be, Tanglewood East, I mean, that's sort of exaggerating it somewhat, Wolf Trap, of Massachusetts. I have no idea what their plans are, if there's any contact between Indian Hill, the trustees, and the town. This would be a mechanism to use to approach them, let's put it that way. However, I'd also like to point out that in addition to music, there is also a fair amount of concern inside the core city. I'm interested in recruiting, frankly. There's an interest in art and music inside the core city, and a lot of the practitioners, as well as the folks who enjoy it, are finding it increasingly expensive and inefficient to do it there. So without going into the expertise required and all the rest, I mean, don't eliminate what we'll call the visual arts along with music.
Okay, how about open space?
That one is even easier.
Help me.
Okay. At the risk of sounding flippant, and please, calm me down on this, Paul. You generally bring the hammer down. I depend on him to bring the hammer down on me.
Am I letting you get too far out on the limb, Mike?
No, let me go out on the limb, then really cut it off so I can crash. Okay, all right. With open space, in fact, I would like to have the public engaged in this very, very directly. There are a lot of numbers floating around. I heard a few in passing about how it costs money for housing. And basically, the folks who feel this way they claim to be open space, but I'm never quite sure whether they want open space or just don't want houses. It's a
Right,
real
yeah.
issue, all right? And also it brings into the issue of conservation. All right. And it turns out that conservation's really changed between the late part of the 20th century and where we are now. And my favorite place, I'm not suggesting we should duplicate it, but I think you've been everywhere, Paul, so you've been to the Netherlands, right?
I have.
All right, you have. Right. If you go along the coastline where they have built the dikes, and you just go a little bit, not very far inland, you will find the result of an interesting collaboration between business, government, and local government, in which they have done what I would call modern conservation and curation, where you have gardens that operate, if not all year round, in different forms and functions, but they also become cultural centers in and of themselves. So I'm hoping that we could start thinking about use of land, open and otherwise, in something other than the, what we'll call traditional ways, which are not necessarily the most efficient. And like modern farming techniques, if you go to California or go to places where they do farming on a serious basis, or Nebraska if they're still doing it there, and you try to move that, and you look at what we're doing here, you can see right away in Littleton, however, it looks good, it looks like craft, it looks like we're doing something, but it turns out for the rest of the open land that we have here, it's not really being curated in a way that will draw visitors here, that will be an attractant.
Okay, clearly Mike has thought very hard about this. I like the idea. You sold me.
I'm more interested in.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. I'm trying to sell you. I'm hoping that you would say terrible, or I've got another one, or a third one,
Now
or
you're
a
gonna
fourth
get
one.
what you asked for.
What?
Now you're gonna get what you asked for.
Come on. Here you go.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
No, please.
Yeah, all right.
But that's.
Soft. Come on. Sorry.
no, it's just three reactions, and we discussed this at
Yes,
the at the subcommittee meeting too. First of all, on the primacy or the prioritization we ought to pay to the piece of the puzzle that is economic, I agree with. I've advocated it over and over again, and I support the effort you're making to inject that into all the parts of the conversation, because I think that's what is underappreciated and underlying a lot of issues is that there's an economic piece to no matter what the conversation is. You can't do what you want culturally if you don't have the economic resource. You can't provide the services you have. If you want to have control over your land use, you have to be proactive there, and which involves being proactive about your economic growth, all of those things. So I'm an advocate for doing all that kind of, or seeing that kind of interrelation. The idea of an organizing principle, taking aside the particular topic that you chose, the economic piece, I think that's a place that I would rather see us end up with the final plan, than something we start with. I would agree with the criticism that came up earlier that our plan in place doesn't seem to give much evidence of an overarching organizing principle. And that's a weakness of it. It's a lot of stray ideas tied together under the the usual topic areas. So I don't mind the idea of, at the end of the day, when we've gathered the input, had our discussions, heard alternatives, had our debates, ending up at a place where our document has an organizing principle. And I certainly wouldn't oppose that, from my own biases, that the economic piece be, primary there. But if you start there, then, as evidenced, I think, just by the conversation that you and Melissa had, we run the risk of having somebody hear, okay, economic development or the economic pieces are going to be our organizing principle. Well, what about this? What about that? And all of a sudden, we're in an argument as to whether or not those two things have merit against each other, when the real point ought to be making the connections between them rather than presenting it in the form. So it's more in terms of my concern is do we get off on the wrong foot by sending the message that we've already decided what's going to be, our outcome, as opposed to, we're soliciting input and we have our own opinions, we'll inject them along the way. We may well want to drive it in a direction where we end up with one organizing principle, but I don't think we want to stop input or send the wrong message. And I think we run the risk of doing that if we adopt a organizing principle at the beginning as opposed to being open to the idea of an organizing principle along the way. So,
We still have to
Well, I disagree with that, Paul.
okay.
end up someplace, and we gotta find a way to get at it. So his suggestions about, the economics, the Netherlands, it's not the same as here, and your suggestions, and all the ways down the line, we still have to look at someplace. I liked your umbrella. I don't know if you use the word umbrella, is, we have to get someplace, and all these things have to come underneath. So that's why I pictured an umbrella, not a beach umbrella. It might be a beach to start out, but eventually it's just gonna be a one-person umbrella that we need the town to fit underneath and what we want. And again, not us, we, the town. And Paul's directions, your directions, it's gotta lead underneath that umbrella and be done with it. We need to really solidify where do we want to be.
There's a fundamental assumption, Peter, you landed on something fairly important from my particular point of view, and that is, there is the notion that somehow or other, that there is something out there called the town vision, okay? And I don't mean it from a planning point of view, Maren, okay? Not doing envisioning here, okay? I'm not sure that for a population greater than maybe 50 or something that brings people together like a religious belief or a political group or something of this sort, I don't believe such a vision really exists. I think that people carry in their mind a picture, and that's what they think the town should be like or is like. And I think our job in Littleton, or especially in Littleton, is not so much to come up with a vision or a picture, but more the opportunity to make choices that we all make so that we all participate in living here. In other words, we're all part of, I don't mean to sound like a slogan, but in the end, and in the beginning, the town is what it is because of what we have here and who put it here, and who's putting it here.
Yeah.
So the diversity is so great that my idea, or Melissa's idea, and even Paul's idea of a bucolic town, okay? I mean, I would, if we start sketching it out, I would hate to look at the drawing of what it looked like. But, so what I'm really trying to do is break away from this notion that we've got a vision. I think that we are more interested in quality of life, and we're interested in making sure the town can do more than survive, that it can have choices. When I think about our discussions about acquiring or not acquiring land, or buying anything, or doing anything in town, where are the resources coming from? It's like for me, it's like a primary threat and a primary opportunity.
Sure, building a new firehouse.
And, do we need it? What's the payoff? Does it really, do we need it to enhance our quality of life? I would like to, I'm very wary that the term economics, anything involving a heavy duty, involving the kind of abstraction that sometimes is associated with economics, will just scare the public away. I am concerned about that. So I'm looking for help here.
It has to be one of the premier subjects, is the economics of the town.
Well,
Without it,
Yeah, but
my word as of late, perish.
Can't roll enough.
Mike had a really cool saying the other day. A process through which everything flows. So everything flows through. What were the words you used? A theme,
it must not have been very good if you forgot it, so it's forgettable. So
so it's
Even a blind
basically,
squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
basically a theme that everything flows through, or is
Like a septic system.
under.
there you go.
Under,
It's pretty close. Pretty close.
in that case, we
Pennies and asses.
we might start out with one or more themes.
Yeah.
And then come
Now we're old
bring them
school.
together.
Well,
The good old days.
I'm trying to pick up again on several themes here, but it sounds to me like perhaps the quality of life and economics and a bunch of other things fit into that. But I want to be very careful that we're not a committee, or that a steering committee starts telling the public what that quality of life is.
I think that's the key, Mike, is not the underlying message you're trying to promote here, or even the notion that we should be trying to derive an organizing theme. I think it's more in how we inject that, present it,
Yeah.
be mindful of the subtleties of it, because it's how people react to it that, we will live and die by. And at the end of the day, we want to be successful, and we want to include their input, but
We
that
don't want to
being,
lose another 20 years.
right.
Bob?
Yep.
I'm somebody that's lived in town, I've been in town all my life. I look now at the way the town is going, and it's becoming very unfriendly. I mean, we have to jump through hoops to get something done. People want to bring in businesses, you can't bring in a business. We make bylaws to block businesses coming in, like your big box stores. Well, maybe not everybody wants big box stores, so we come up with that, with a bylaw for that. But I think that we've got to work more with the people in order to get things done, to make the town gel. I mean, we have a group here that doesn't want property, we have a group that wants open space. It's just like the town is not friendly to everybody. We're fighting people. That we want to build houses. People want to move out this way, and if you look at the town, well, we don't want houses. So, we're telling people we don't want them to move to town because we don't want to build any more houses. So I think the town has become, in part of your theme, we've got to become a more friendly town.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And you're right, housing is a piece of that, a big piece of that.
And to go along with the housing is we have to have more, we've got to have the services that we can provide to people, like, maybe the shuttle to the common for the people who live on the outskirts, or we've got to have an area in town where we can walk to do shopping and stuff like that. I see the people walking from Ponside up, arms full of bags. There's no service with them to get back and forth. So it goes back to we got to become more friendly.
You're,
Gives them recreation. They can stop at the basketball court on the way up, get a game in.
your remarks bring to mind that one of the other the other way of looking at a town, if you take seriously the commuting that people in Littleton do it, I don't have the numbers. I think one of the towns that did a plan has the numbers. If they actually counted the number of folks who work outside of the town. I don't know where Littleton would come out, but it would strike me as, it would be surprising if more than 50%, it would not be surprising to me if more than 60% of the folks in Littleton worked elsewhere.
So I think it may be a little bit higher than that.
Okay. So if you think of ourselves as a kind of island, and we have to bring certain resources in, what makes us attractive? And when I started just at the very beginning looking at the economic efforts made on islands, admittedly for tourists, it turns out without the infrastructure that you're alluding to and the cooperation and friendliness of the locals, there is no tourist business for them. So things like cross buses that take everybody from shopping to the center of town, for example, or more importantly, the transportation, the equivalent to the wharf, okay? Those kind of things make a big difference because that's where people gather. I don't know how friendly the transfer station is this year, but let's put it this way, that a lot of stuff goes on that galvanizes the town around the dump, okay? So why not?
Everything revolves around the dollar too. I mean,
Yeah,
what is it
true.
gonna cost? What's the economics of the town in order to bring these things forward?
Now you're after solutions, and I don't think we're here tonight to do solutions. I'm looking for framework.
That's later on the schedule.
We've spoken often as to, it's not going to be the steering committee's plan, it's not going to be the board of selectmen plan, planning board plan, et cetera. It's going to be the people of the town plan. So having an organizing theme, does it counter that? Now conversely, otherwise, without some sort of organizational principle, we're wandering lost in the desert. If we're going to start using island metaphors, how about a desert metaphor?
I'll go for desert.
Okay. I've been lost in the desert once or twice. It's not a pleasant feeling.
Couldn't see the water.
Couldn't see the water at all.
Didn't like the land, not seeing land.
It was just sand. And you're hoping the helicopter comes back for you. But an organizing principle, maybe rather than a theme. Sure. That's playing with words. some sort of organizational structure so that when we do release an RFP, contained therein, whoever responds to it has an idea as to how to shape things. Because putting out the RFP that has a scope of service and things, okay, give us a master plan, and a master plan that includes a housing plan, economic development plan, on and on and on. Got it, that's the easy part. What's specific, and I won't use the word unique, but certainly what's specific to the needs, wants, desires of Littletonians that we inject into the RFP so that these businesses, the vendors, look at that and go, I've got an idea which direction and how to go with this. So to say economics in your definition of the two different ones certainly is very useful because certainly the study of economics, macro, microeconomics, get that, we know the supply and demand curve, where they cross equilibrium. We all get that piece. Your questions about cultural and then open space and your ability to speak to those is quite useful. And you could say, and you use the term, it all comes back to the dollar, and there's fairness in that comment, but I don't know that it's wholly accurate, because some folks are willing to sacrifice some dollars for fulfillment. So, if we go back to, remember sociology, Maslow, and the 5 levels, and self-actualization right at the top of the pyramid there, the triangle, I'd stay awake. You can't really pick up yourself.
He's in the desert, too. Wow!
It came to me.
From macro to
Oh,
mobile.
wow. Was the bush burning, too?
701.
Maslow, too, I mean, I haven't heard that for years.
Okay. Back to the subject
Budget
again.
can afford for.
I'm sorry?
It's what your budget can afford. I mean,
True, but some people are
everybody
willing to not even do that. They may well have the dollar, but they'll choose not to buy it. Maybe someone will buy a hot rod automobile, and 10 miles to the gallon, but someone's going to buy a very fuel-efficient car, and either one could have bought either one, but their own particular needs, wants, desires really fall into that, not circumstances, because both could have afforded either one and done either one, but through personal choices made those decisions. And that somebody could buy the large limousine, but what do I need? I need a car to get from here to here, and my little Fiat gets me from here to here. I don't need a large limousine. Could afford it, but chose not to do that. So we're all going to be in positions to making choices, and we do it every single day. We make choices, and it's all priorities. And that's how somebody may say, "I don't have time to do that." I say, "Well, actually, you do. You've just chosen to do this instead, which is fine. You've prioritized this over that." And the same thing how we may spend our money. Someone buys a big pickup truck, a 3500 model instead of the 1500 model. Well, why? Because I can.
No, because they pull big things with it.
And some people, it's for that purpose. It's a very utilitarian purpose.
Is that aimed right at me?
Aimed right at you, yes.
Directly? Profigliano.
And sometimes it's very utilitarian, and you've done it because of that, and others, I just like it. So they chose to spend their money that way.
But sometimes as a resident, and depends on who shows up at town meeting, we all, unfortunately, we don't all get to choose where our money gets spent. Just like in the big government, you gotta send it in, they spend it where they want. If people don't show up and people don't participate, you're stuck with what you got, correct? And some of our town meetings, it's really funny how they go. Some days they're packed.
That's
And
true.
as soon as that one subject goes by,
That's important. Yes, that's correct.
so in this instance, us sitting here, we don't even have 7 people to show up on a regular basis, twice now or something. I was told that last meeting I missed was not on the agenda, so that's the only reason why I missed my one meeting.
We'll have to discuss what your point is there, but
No, I was giving him a razz, and
Oh,
he told me
okay.
there was no meeting and there was, so that's, but again, to show up and participate is important. This is your second meeting, is that correct?
No, it's.
Third?
more than that.
More than that.
But
Really?
let's bring it back,
Oh,
though,
good.
to the organizing theme, principle, whatever. We should be able to define something that we're trying to help the town in a direction. The specific direction, we're off by a matter of degrees. If we're sitting here and we're 180 degrees off, wow, something's very, very wrong. I would offer that. And different folks going to have different ideas. As Peter said, what are our, person's particular priorities? Some may say, you're 90 degrees off the way I want to go. Some may say, you're just 10 degrees off the direction I want to go. We're not going to meet everybody's thing. A bit about friendliness and stuff. Your experience here is extraordinarily different than my experience here. You grew up here. 60 years ago, it was a very different town. When I go back to the town that I grew up in, it's very, very different also. And there's that old saying, you can't go back home. Thing is, you never left home, so you've seen.
That's, by the way, that's another novel. So now we now know his education in the desert keeps growing here. Okay.
Now, I've lived in.
Here too long.
That's it, hypoxia. I've lived in various different sorts of communities in the Phoenix area where houses are 8 foot on property line and there's not a fence between them. There's cinder block walls that are 6 feet tall. So everybody's in their little cube, okay? But one of the great things about being here is we don't have cinder block walls. We don't have chain link fences here. So that's, that's a personal thing for me. I've lived in gated communities. Some people call them Air Force bases. So that, and then I've lived in hamlets, small little towns. We talk about cluster zoning and having a little retail area and immediately surrounding homes and tightly packed homes at that. I've lived in those sorts of communities also, overseas in Europe, never here in the United States in that sort of community. But then from being across the entire United States, I've lived in different locations, seen different things. So I would offer, you've seen those changes here. It was a much more homesy, I'm going to speculate if I may, and correct me if I'm off base here, much more homesy as you were growing up. And now, okay, I move in, Mike moves in, folks that you don't know, so the intimacy you have with people you've grown up your whole life, we don't share that intimacy.
Well, I moved in 40 years ago. I'll become a newcomer soon.
I mean, sincerely, I think we're friendly and friends on it, but still, there's a level of intimacy, and I can see that. So when I'm gathering with folks who are townies and grew up together, I can understand there's a bond there.
What's more than that, it's
Yeah.
what someone from out of town, what they bring to us. When growing up here, again, your neighbor was doing something, you went over and helped them. I had neighbors move in, went over and introduced myself. This one guy, I bet you don't speak to him once every 5 years. And that was to get him unstuck one time. But it's sometimes the people that come in are taking the town away from its friendly atmosphere. Some of them aren't as friendly as.
I would offer you had a person or two like that 60 years ago also, who the rest of the town just didn't interact. Again, wild speculation on my part, but given the nature of
I'm
people.
not saying they're all like that.
And no, I know that. And it's
Just the ones that come from like Arizona.
yeah, but
Height
you,
deprivation.
Our memories are tricky things, too, Boy, retired Sergeant Bob Romley's a hell of a lot more calm than Sergeant Bob Romley was. Do you think everybody you encountered on the side of the road would remember how friendly you were, Bob?
But, I not so much the people in the town, it's what we do to businesses, trying to get things through to build something.
Yeah.
It's like you gotta jump through hoops to get it done.
I think it's become a little easier in the last 10 years, though, or the last 5 or 6 years. I think it's become.
Since you've been on the board.
I didn't say that. Is that how long I've been on the
well,
board?
expedited permitting, specific to this example you're giving, is definitely, it's a step in the right direction.
Doesn't mean there aren't cases that are maddeningly frustrating, like the poor folks at the Rest Act 3 trying to get what they used to have, a full liquor license.
Okay, back to the organized principle. I think a fair discussion, because again, it gets us more knowing more about each other and helps us with each other's thoughts. The economic theme, I see the utility in it and the way you've described it. Paul hit a good point. There's a risk of misinterpretation, and I would say there's a strong risk. Now, no risk, no reward, so this is not a risk-averse statement. It's just a risk mitigation statement now is where I'm going with this. And how do we want to address that? Is it a risk that's worth taking? Do we see enough reward in this? Knowing right up front, forecasting easily, someone will misunderstand it, and we will backtrack and take some time to explain a rationale. We may articulate it well and be successful in communicating it, anticipate we will fail again in some subset of that. So I'm willing to take the risk personally. Now, we need to craft it well to try to minimize that risk of misinterpretation. Where we are right now, we're not there yet. That's going to take more work, Mike.
Okay,
The dilemma.
right. Before I embark on this endless trek across the Arctic, well, if it's still, unless it melts. Does anyone here having, I mean, this knee-jerk response I'm looking for, is there, Paul made, I think, an important contribution to the discussion from my point of view, and that is for a change. Anyway, the idea is that he wants to use an organizing principle, whatever it is, let's say it's economics, at the end of the planning process. You made the point we need something that begins pulling the public and our thinking together from the very beginning. And so my task is either to turn this into something that can be used at both ends. Now, at the end, it's very easy. It's the beginning part. In other words, the part that you are after. That's the hard part. I have no problem working on that and trying to get it done. But what I am looking forward from you is, does anyone here in a knee-jerk response have another organizing principle, or two, or three? I don't really, the task it may be easier and more profitable, okay?
I might play around with the wording, but the basic underlying point, I think that's the key thing. No matter what your vision is, no matter what you like, somewhere on the subsurface there is the economic health and the sustainability of the town plays a role there.
The term that I think about that applies to the town is not just the transactional, what we'll call classic economics. It's the fulfillment part. That's the culture, that's the fulfillment, that's the emotional, that's the part where you take in what we'll call the irrationality of the marketplace, if you want to get technical about it, all right? It's the place where most people live their daily lives in that place. And getting that down in a form that is going to be, to resonate. I mean, having to do with friendliness, with sense of community, what will do it, looking for input for how do we move people from one side of the town to the other, from the depot, not, all that kind of stuff actually is fulfillment. That's not transactional economics. Paul, I think, landed on that. So I don't have any problems working on it at all. But if any of you, any of the rest of the group comes in with something that can disrupt this, I'm open to it. This is not a closed door by any stretch of the imagination.
Initially, Paul, I took you maybe a bit reticent. So what do you think now?
Oh, I just think it's a place we could be more inclined to arrive at as things reveal themselves to us through the process, as opposed to being something we start with. But, as you say, risk reward. I do think we have to be careful as to how we posit it. We're going to invite people in for their input, and we're going to tell them, here's our organizing principle. We need to explain, this is a straw man. This is where we're starting from. But, it can change along the way based on input, based on what we learn, based on debates we have, whatever. But if there's value, if there's commonly agreed value in starting with a focal point, I can be open to that. I think we just have to be careful how we do it.
I think you hit it there, because it does provide a point of departure. And even if we miss the mark, so we release the RFP, and we get a vendor, and we pick a vendor, and we're happy with it, and they've begun down that road, there is course corrections available to us. So I would ask, and you put it in the terms of beginning or ending.
Yeah.
I would ask that we put it in the beginning.
Okay.
And everybody think this through a little bit. Maybe give Mike some, thoughts as we go through the next week or two to help him here, because I'm kind of teasing you a little bit by pointing to you, but you've come up with a good idea, and no good idea goes unpunished, right? So.
Well, especially if you shoot it down and you come up with something even better. Then that's the reward of the good idea.
But I think you're on the right track, and we need to help you too. the word economics, because we talk about economic development, and that,
That's-
it's even one of the pillars of the entire plan, so folks can get narrowly focused on that. And just to reiterate, we need to be careful there on how we present that. So let's go forward with that, if everybody's okay for the moment, at least. All right?
What's the word I'm looking for? Sociological? Is that?
Well, it's
is that the word?
socioeconomic, if that's what you're thinking.
We've got some of that language in our draft language in the RFP already, so that'll come back. I forget how we ended up on the language on that, but it's in there, right? Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rich, you want to talk to us a little bit about schedule?
Okay,
Thank you all, by the way, appreciate it very much.
You did the work.
thank you. We're on track in terms of drafting the RFQ.
Okay.
Looks like we'll bring it here August 25th, we'll bring it here on September 8th, and we'll finally approve it on September 22nd and send it off to town council. From there, it goes
Let me
to,
stop you there for me. So your thoughts at this point, and we won't make a decision on this,
Yeah.
but let's just
No,
see
this-
that we all understand what you're thinking here. And I'm reading it, so the committee would, at that point on September 22nd, that meeting, we're happy with it, and then we get it off to town council prior to releasing. Is it worthwhile having it run by town council before then?
well, we're drafting it on the 25th, which we bring it before you guys. For the first few, we talk about it, you send us back to fix it, and we come back on September 8th. So it's not worth going to town council until after we get a final.
I hear what you're saying, but then it would have to come back to us if town council found some errors.
Well,
So what I'm thinking is,
based on
you
town,
guys help me.
well, based on town council reviewing most of it, the main body of it right now,
Uh-huh.
because they've got it,
No, we'll send it to them once. It's,
We're gonna send it to Bonnie initially, right, yeah, and then, 'cause
yeah.
she's the procurement officer, right? Yeah.
and we could send it off when we're at our semifinal draft.
All right, well, there's no float in this schedule for if on September 22nd, this whole committee says, it looks good to us, goes off to town council. The town council says you made an error, it needs to be reviewed again.
Right, there is no float in this.
So that's the point I'm trying to make here, is town council is not the approval authority. And the way the schedule is designed right now, he's the approval authority, because this committee would say, yes, it looks good, goes off town council.
And I think some of this might depend on how it's received in 2 weeks. If we've done a good job so far with the
Yeah.
scope of services and everything. That might well dictate where we end up with. You know, if you're ready on the 22nd, I'm going to be gone for the meeting on the 8th and the 22nd, so.
Maybe we could invite council into our meeting on, say, the 8th or whatever, so, you know, he could hear it as it's being debated and get us off any wrong tracks we're on. I'm just trying to stay on schedule, and then, you know,
I'm okay to do that, yeah.
and then, you know, he sees what we're talking about trying to do, and if he has to go out and play around with language, rather than just handing him documents, you know.
Well, given you all your experience, any deviations at the noise level, I should think. Given all your experience in doing these, I could only think it'd be at the noise level. I can't see something all that substantively wrong.
No.
That town council would go,
Yeah.
you missed the boat here.
And the way
But wouldn't we rather have them just look at the entire thing in one shot and be done with it then, instead of interjecting each time as we go? I mean, that way, I kind of liked Richie's first statement, we look at this, we come in front of us. On the 8th, he gives this, on the 22nd, we give it to him, he looks at it, and says, all right, these are the 3 issues, it comes back to us, and we address those 3 issues only, instead of,
But disagrees, just that this, get to be able to support that.
what are we in such a hurry? I mean, what does one extra meeting change to get it right?
see, this,
I guess I'm not articulating it well enough.
I guess not.
I have no problem in another meeting after town council sees it. And I have no problem personally at changing these dates. All I'm saying is the schedule, as we look at it today, does not have that built into it.
no, it doesn't.
So that step needs to be built in.
Can
That's
do.
all I'm saying.
We can do that.
And I'm guessing, well, let's see, August, on the September 8th, I'm gonna guess you guys are gonna be pretty far along on that.
We
do you
should be,
think?
we should be
Yeah.
done.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
getting the draft to
Yeah.
Bonnie and Maren and Tom Harrington by that point,
By the 22nd is when that goes to them.
I'd offer, here's what I'd offer, is after the 8th, we meet that meeting, and I'm betting you guys are far enough along in this, that it can go to town council at that point.
So we
You
play the
meet
game
one
that
more
day.
time
Fine.
as a subcommittee between that and the 22nd. And on the 22nd, this committee now has, you're content with it, town council's content with it, and boom, now the committee approves it.
I think I'm all for that. I think our intent was just not to overuse town council when we didn't need
I
to.
don't think you'll use them by doing it that way.
No, the way you propose is fine. Yeah.
Maren, from looking at the language so far, since you've seen a lot of these,
Yeah.
I would imagine the town council wants to take a very hard look because of the amount of money and responsibility that goes along with this, so,
Right, but he'll probably have standard sections he'll be able to place in.
okay, so you don't think it's going to be like, I mean, my understanding is that they're always looking for minefields that are going to explode, that lay people just never see in contracts. No, we didn't mean that, but that's what you said.
Yeah, you know, I think town council probably
A little bit of
reviews
fun. I don't get
half a
much.
dozen or 10 of these a year.
This is my
I mean, we should, it's a
Yeah, but
pretty standard.
we're putting words in here and expectations in here that,
But those are the things that he can't approve. He'll approve content and insurances and making sure we don't have conflicting language.
Right,
So-
and we would ask him to review, not only add the sections that he needs to have in
Yeah.
there, but also to review everything the committee's done, just to make sure.
Not missing his statutory language or anything like that, yeah.
we're committing a faux pas that we could have paid
And then we
through
could
the
get it
nose
to
for.
Bonnie after that, and so if this schedule works, just on September 8th, we all give a head nod, looks good. You get it to Tom, get it back, you guys meet one more time before the 22nd, so that you think it's all ready for the full committee to give its final review and approval.
Sure.
Now, you gotta think, you can't just give it to us on the 22nd and expect us to vote on it. You gotta have a few days before that at least, so people have an opportunity to read it.
Yeah.
So how about by the Friday before? So that'll be 4 days earlier. Is that the 18th? Did I hit that right? September
Yeah.
18th, is that the
Should be.
Friday?
Yeah,
So can we shoot for the September 18th? Would you mind adding that into the schedule?
sure, good point.
So September 18th, distribute to committee via email by, you're going to be on vacation at that point? Okay.
Yeah, but town council will be able to, between town council and Bonnie,
Right.
Yeah.
we'll be good shape.
By that point, hopefully we'll be on the part that you play the biggest role in and more into the,
I'm very happy to pass off the electronic version to anybody.
Paper
where you gonna be,
free.
Montana? Yeah, well, they got internet out there, don't they?
Not the part when I'm also in Canada.
Okay.
They have a lot of casinos out there.
Uh,
Wow. Great Falls?
Small ones.
Hey. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
Take your money no matter what the size.
All right.
All right, so here we go. Then
Continue, please, thank you.
September 29th, Bonnie issues, that's a week later, Bonnie issues the RFQ advertised in the Central Register, local newspaper. Week after that, let's see, I think it's a week after that, we have a briefing session, October 6th. Let me get my calendar up.
That's what you got on here.
Yeah, October 29th, yeah. A week after that, we have a briefing session for the applicants. October 9th, which is that Friday, 3 days later. Last day for applicant questions. So, October 13th, which is a Tuesday, we meet together, subcommittee and, well, full committee, to review the applicant's questions, draft an agenda. Let's see, addenda, it should say, for release on that following Friday. So if there is an addenda, if there are questions to put in an addenda. Friday, October 16th is when the addenda goes out. Then a week later, the following Friday, the submissions are in. So from issue to receipt of RFQ, we have just a little over 3 weeks. October 26th, following Monday, Maren picks up the packages, or whoever's here, and splits them up, because each of the proposers, say this, we have 5 proposers, each of them will have given us a package of, say, a dozen proposals. Somebody will have to split those 5 times 12 into packages for all of us, so that we each have all 5 proposals. That's a time-consuming task. Following Tuesday, we meet and evaluate the applicants. Let's see, we can decide at that point if we want to have a designer selection committee, and if we do, for them to review and rank, or we could do it ourselves. We can do it as a committee, or decide we're going to have a subcommittee, designer selection subcommittee.
When they give us these packages, can they give them to us in dozen form?
Yeah, each we can ask.
Instead of having somebody here run off
Right.
all of them
Oh, yeah,
and say
yeah.
they must be given in
The
dozen form.
RFQ will ask that each applicant submit 13, by then, are we going to have 13 members? So probably 15 sets. And we'll each get a hard copy.
Is that out of the ordinary to ask for such a thing? No.
Happens all the time.
Yes, for number of copies, page count, you can, the administrative criteria can be added.
Yeah.
Um,
So, there we are.
Before you go any further, as to who evaluates these, no decision necessary tonight.
Yeah.
We can't make one tonight.
No.
No?
But give some thought as to what might be the right composition of the selection committee. You know, whether it's this whole committee, whether it's just the RFQ committee, whether it's the RFQ subcommittee with some other folks in town as part of that. I would certainly lean towards the latter in all candor, so I'd ask you guys to think about that. And that,
The latter being which option?
other folks beyond our 12
Yeah.
be part of it. And I don't know that the whole 12 of us need to be, I'm almost inclined to say towards the subcommittee with a few other key people. You know, there's a manageable level, again, you guys have done this, you know, once or twice.
Yeah. When we do schools, it's, sometimes there's the whole building committee of, a dozen people make the decision. Sometimes it's only a very small group, 3 people.
You give it
I'd
the-
like to think,
Can be
yeah, I mean, we could,
anything.
as you say, we shouldn't make a decision, and I can't make one anyway, but I would hope that for the purposes of everybody who's putting their time into this committee, that they have a chance to play a role in one of the most important decisions, the most important decision, that's, hiring the
Well,
the consultant. So-
I would think that you'd almost have to, because the thought process that went into what these guys are going to provide should be, or is in our heads completely. We're the ones that have been attending the meetings every week. And so we need to, in order to pick the right applicant, we need to know that, all those components, and be able to match those components with the applicant to come up with the right applicant.
What I would ask us to do, though, if we decide the whole committee's the right thing to go, and I'm easy on that, but we will have decided before we release the RFP.
Yeah,
Or the
that's
RFQ.
fine.
I think that's a fairness issue. too.
Yeah, we gotta settle on the process before we send out the document. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
This has been alluded to, but I'm interested in the point of, our collective, individual point of view. It is, after the RFP has been released and it's been bid on and all the rest, we are now living with a consultant. I'll just cut it, okay? This is the part that I really am most concerned about after listening to our visitors a couple of weeks ago. And I guess I'm trying to put the selection process more explicitly connected with the management process. So what is the current picture we have, that's a rhetorical question perhaps, about how the consultant is going to be, quote, how the process is going to be managed?
Oh, once the consultant's on board?
Yes.
I know you've got some thoughts on that.
I mean, because to me, this is connected with selection. I mean, you know, I think all of us here have had experience with, okay, we're going to hire X, and part of what goes into the process is who's she going to be working for or under or with or in spite of, okay? And I think we got to think about the management part as, and not just as a criterion, but who actually on this committee, or who in the town is going to be doing it.
Right, and understanding that the contract is technically with the planning board.
That is exactly, right.
Also, it's going to be signed by town administrator, most likely given the dollar amount.
I mean, I don't mean to, you know, get us off the track, but to me, discussing, you know, who is going to review the document and, you know, decide who gets picked.
No, that is the next step after selection, as to who's managing, how is the vendor managed?
Yeah, we should probably put that in the RFP, who are they gonna report to at the end of the,
Well, yeah, it ought to be much like what you said, PJ, about the selection part, then the ultimate management of that relationship ought to be spelled out. Whether it's in the RFP or at least voted on by this group, either way,
yeah.
yeah.
So that, we'll add that into the decision matrix here too.
Let me throw another grenade into it, okay?
Well, not grenades, these are.
Okay, all right.
We discussed.
We're talking here about a very dynamic, personal, I mean, I'm coming back to your theme of friendliness here, okay? And we may find someone technically competent of lifting the rock and carrying it to the other side of the room. And however, not everybody on the committee, not everybody in town necessarily can successfully interact with the rock carrier. And we want to get the rock carried across in spite of, okay? So if someone does not approve of or is reluctant or skeptical about a particular applicant or is in, you know, should that person be on the management on the management
Well, you don't
process?
get along with anybody.
That's why I'm putting this out already, so I don't have to worry about it.
Neither do I.
Okay?
I don't either.
Oh, you get along much
Well,
better
the
than I
rea-
do.
All right, the reason we have the interviews is so we can ferret out that chemistry. And one of the things that we seek in those interviews is to make sure that the guys that come in front of us are the guys that we're going to have service us, not a dog and pony show, so that a salesperson comes in and then leaves and we never see him again. That happens. We want to make sure that the
Yep.
guys that come in are the guys that we're going to see.
Okay. I'm less worried about how we deal with the guys who come in, the men and women who come in and do their shtick. I'm talking about the town and us. Because who manages that process and how that gets managed is not trivial.
That's true. That needs to be discussed at some
Yes,
point.
that's all, I'm only
Yeah.
trying to make sure that we
Between
don't.
now and when we send out the RFP, we ought to resolve that question. Get it in
That's
the-
Well, we can send it out, it's before we pick.
Yeah, but just in case we want to put that language in there, the people might be, who are considering applying might want to know, well, who am I going to be working for? The planning board, you guys, somebody else?
Because
Yeah.
that's a triad. We have the town, we have us, and we have the, whoever we're gonna have for the consultant help us through this process. And there's an interaction.
All right, we got that one.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I got one other schedule item related that I'd just like to get on the radar screen.
All right?
Okay, Paul, give me just one sec. All right. Is there, that takes us up through
October
award.
22nd, 7th.
So,
October 27th, right?
Now into November
10th.
10th, which is a little over a week later. Because during that almost 10-day period, we're going to be doing reference checks. And that takes time.
Okay.
November 17th, exactly 1 week later, the committee, or the Designer Selection Committee, score and rank, because now the reference checks are done. On the 18th, which is the very next day, we send a letter out to the 3 preferred candidates. Bonnie does that. Let's see. On December 8th, which is just a little over 2 weeks, the reason I'm pushing it out 2 weeks is because Thanksgiving comes right in the middle of that. December 8th is when we do the interviews for the top 3 finalists. And those interviews can be 45 minutes apiece. This is what I suggest, 45 minutes with 15 minutes each. We start at 6, we end at 9 at night. Now, we can stretch that out. Generally, if you go longer than 45 minutes, you're into a dog and pony show. If you go 45 minutes, it gives enough for 20 minutes worth of presentation by them and 20 minutes worth of questions. We don't know, have good answers at the end of 20 minutes, then it gets long. The, let's see, the 15th or the 22nd?
Excuse me, can I ask a question? I want to back up. We're going to be seeing material, written material from the applicants, interested parties before this. Is that correct? Or no?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, in the real world, some written material is far more attractive, intriguing, and interesting, whether we hire the person or not, than others, right?
Let's say that again.
I'm sorry. I'm suggesting that not all applicants are created equal at 45 minutes. That's all I'm saying. And some may be worth talking to more, not because we're necessarily interested in hiring them, they may have a particular expertise that helps us making our decision without you learn a lot from the applicants.
Call them back, second.
Not just going to call back, it's just, someone might submit a very good piece on something that hits the committee.
Let me ask you this, what the procurement rules say? The law and the message in the
Yeah,
Commonwealth?
so, thank you.
As far
We
as,
can't
If you
take
post a
10
time,
minutes
can
with
you
one.
extend it?
Can't take 10 minutes with one and 10 hours with another.
No, you have to be equal.
It has to all be the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has to be equal.
But
Time necessary for the,
If we get 12 responses, you might find it necessary, hopeful, or whatever word I'm trying to go. You might want to meet with 6 candidates rather than
Exactly.
3.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah.
it's never-
Yeah.
No, that piece, yes, but I think to Mike's point, you know, whether or not someone seems like extraordinarily talented at the 44th minute, say, I'd like to listen to you for another hour, you know, the procurement rules are going to say we have to be
Okay,
equal. how
all
we
right,
treat
so I
everybody.
want to know, okay.
time necessary to make an informed decision on their application.
I don't know about,
Now-
I don't know ending something after 5 minutes.
But we will be meeting a whole group of new people that hopefully we can call and ask a question about later, you know,
Okay,
even if they're not
okay,
chosen.
all right.
No, we'll have reference checks, too.
Right.
And it's not their best, it's the last few in that order, so we get good with the bad.
But
Now-
if there's some information, some knowledge base that we don't get with somebody else, we said, oh, well, if we have a question about this, you know, we'll think about calling them.
You can do that, under the rules. Okay, all right.
Now, because of the late hour at 9 PM, I generally don't recommend making a decision on December 8th, on that night. We recommend either the 15th or the 22nd as our decision-making night. That's December 15th, which is the following week,
Yeah.
or the 22nd, which is the week after that. And then we got Christmas. So, depending on who we select as a finalist, Bonnie sends out a letter to begin negotiations.
Yep.
We continue to negotiate, hopefully we'll finish that December 29th. The contract is reviewed by town council on, say, the 30th through the first 10 days of January. Then, our committee meets again on Tuesday, January 12th, and we vote, if all goes well, for the preferred candidate. We vote to recommend approval by the planning board for the preferred candidate, okay? Then it goes off to the planning board. Planning board just happens to be meeting the following Thursday, 2 days later, on the 14th. Then there's an alternate date here if there's an issue with the town council. So on January 14th, the planning board meets and reviews and makes its recommendation for the preferred candidate to have the town of Littleton issue a contract with the same, and depending on whether or not the selectmen have to approve that as well, we either send it off to the selectmen or to Bonnie and town council to issue the contract.
I'm saying it's only PB needs to do it, right? Only the planning board needs to approve.
Yeah,
Yeah, generally,
because it's planning board funds.
Yeah.
yeah.
All very good, thanks. Couple of suggestions to throw in there is at appropriate times, and we don't need to decide it tonight, a update to the planning board and to the board of selectmen.
Perfect.
And consider we even advertising a public hearing. I'm not sure, that, I'm thinking out loud. Forget I was thinking, or at least trying to think for the moment, sorry. But certainly, I think the planning board and the board of selectmen, at least one, if not two updates. And then I would certainly, as a selectman myself, when we meet with the planning board, when this committee meets with the planning board, to say, and give that presentation, is that the board of selectmen will have been invited to that too.
That's a good idea, yeah.
Paul, FinCom participation, some way, shape, or form, what are your thoughts?
I mentioned before, we have a lighter schedule in the summer. We're meeting next week, and it is on our agenda for Finance Committee that I'll give an update as to what our activity has been.
Okay.
Beyond that, I'm not sure what you want, and I'll invite if they want a bigger participation, but I think they're content right now.
I'd say offer it,
Yeah.
and then you all, can, as a FinCom, can decide if you need more than that, and certainly always welcome FinCom to this. Okay. Paul, you had an input?
Yeah, it's a calendar issue, although I recognize that the calendar Rich drafted, which was pretty specific to the RFP in the selection process, but in terms of other topics we might be doing as a committee, I think it'd be a great time right now, before we get too much farther down the road, for each of us to get a hard copy of our existing master plan and spend a meeting or two going through it section by section. Get it, a week or two in advance so we can have time to go through and use a highlighter and decide what we do and don't like about it structurally, about the actual language, and you can take a look at, what we thought we were going to do versus what we ended up doing, to what extent it lacks a organizing principle, and, and how, the whole exercise. I think we shouldn't get too far down the road before we do that, and I'd love to participate in it also. I don't think I'm going to be here on the 25th, so I hope we don't start it that night, but maybe for the first couple of meetings in September, or whenever you think it's appropriate, Mr. Chairman, but.
No, our next meeting is kind of full with Northeastern, right? How long is that supposed to go? When you say the 25th? Northeastern's coming on the 25th, right?
Yeah, and from what I understand, that her purpose is to make a presentation about the kind of stuff that they do, which shouldn't take more than, say, 30 minutes, if
All right.
that much.
And then question.
And mainly, it's going to be us asking questions and seeing if there's anything of interest there to us, other than stimulation.
Why don't we think about starting the following meeting then? So that in September, as you suggest. Can I ask you to organize it? In other words, structure how you'd like to go through it. Now, you said section by section, that's easy enough to say, but,
Yeah.
Maybe we don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe it's 1, 4, 6, 2. Whatever
I'll
makes
talk with
sense.
Maren maybe, and we can talk about how
Okay.
best to go over that.
Anything else on the schedule then, folks? All right, outreach, let's just continue it, please. Don't wanna say
I have
that.
one super quick thing
Yes,
there.
please.
I'm ready to go with the Facebook page, so I'd like you guys to get your hands on it and look at it, before we actually launch it to the public. So can I maybe send the link through
Please.
Lauren to you guys, and we can, awesome, okay.
Do we have to be on Facebook?
Nope,
Oh,
made it
good.
public, so,
Yeah.
you're all
good.
set.
Right.
Now, you won't be able to manage the page, but you'll still be able to see it, so, but I think you're fine with that, probably. So,
Listen, I'm dark ages with some things.
And no bullying.
Give me a break.
No bullying.
yeah,
Okay,
I've made it so you can't comment.
I think as
It's one way.
as we've spoken through the evening, our next steps, we've been laying them out, so no further thing there unless anybody has anything. We don't need to adjourn because we never convene. So, we're done. Thanks,
Thank
folks.
you.
Thank you very much.
Same time, same place, 2 weeks.